All right, guys. Welcome to the latest AMA. I'm your host, bit illicit, Colin. You guys know me. Been taking a bit of a break from public life just to focus kind of on my family and self and do some code. And I've been also working on some new marketing. After the Lisa 5.1, I know a lot of people are anticipating a huge, a breakthrough on it. But, I've really developed it to make sure that I follow through with what we said we would do. So that's the big, I didn't really anticipate it creating a huge price surge, but it's good to see, right? So I wanted to start this AMA out with kind of discussing what our plans are, where we're at with development, and kind of going into some of the other future plans, right? So right now I'm currently working on 5.1.1. I have about 3 bugs, I think. There was a few people that had some database issues. I'm getting log files from them. I think we had an issue with the transactions history that Kendall has since fixed, and there was an issue with the unstaking coins. And if anybody's using the mobile wallet, I found an issue with some of my nodes, so they should be back online. Once we get out of beta, then they're not going to rely completely on my nodes. There's been some weird issues with the data center and stuff. It's like my card's like being charged and then reversed and stuff. And so it's just, there's been a lot of weird stuff like that. So I've actually had to get gift cards, ironically. But anyway, the conference went really well too. I guess I should recap on that. It was kind of a promotional event for the new DEF CON. Made a lot of really cool contacts, met some really cool security guys there. Some of them are actually helping review some of the operating system architecture. I've been in touch with another person too that's a really, really brilliant engineer. He's really inspired by Nexus, so we're chatting. I mean, I don't really have a definite time frame on when that's going to follow through, but he's wanting to help, and that's, I think, something that'll really be beneficial to me. I mean, if anybody's done anything just by yourself, it's difficult. I mean, we've single-handedly been doing all of this. Really, this whole update really has been a lot of single-handed. I think, like I said, you guys know 113,000 lines of code, so that's about 2,000-page book. But 3 bugs in 2,000 pages is basically like 3 missing periods in 2,000 pages. I'd say that's pretty good. I'm proud of it, right? But I understand that some of you guys have been a little frustrated that you can't unstake and stuff. So I've made that a really high priority to get that done. But prior to that, I wanted to make sure that we also had some things in motion that were going to help kind of I guess improve the visibility of Nexus, get people, because a lot of people really, they only respond to price and to value, and they don't necessarily see technology as much as they see, okay, well, I've made money. There's a big problem with crypto too, is that everybody sees it as an investment instead of a way of life, right? And so I've been kind of working on some new strategies and developing that. I've also been talking with Sohan too. I think Sohan's on here. Maybe we could give you the floor in a little bit, buddy, if you want. We kind of decided to I'm helping him on his society platform now, where we're kind of pinging back some architectures and stuff, because I mean, everybody saw Elon, right? He appointed a World Economic Forum spokesperson as the CEO of Twitter now. What a surprise, right? I mean, he made all his money in the military industrial complex. He's working on brain implant chips. Okay, what does that seem like to you, right? So, not surprising, but it also presents a really unique opportunity, because there really is no place for free speech. I know people talk about Truth Social, but that still is a centralized platform. Whether or not Trump is a good guy or not, we won't really necessarily be able to know. But my philosophy is that if you ever have a centralized platform, it can be corrupted, and it will be eventually, right? It doesn't matter how good of a person you are. I've seen it happen with companies over and over and over again, which is one of the weights towards developing kind of a more decentralized environment. So we're really focusing on keeping it simple and developing kind of a new type of Twitter environment. So Sohan's kind of working on the mock-ups right now, and we're pinging back ideas back and forth and creating a really cool monetized liking system so that you can monetize content. And then that'll eventually lead to more reputation systems. So, keeping it simple and developing something solid. And ultimately, I think, Nexus and your profiles, can ultimately be like a social media network. And we're going to create kind of a unified data set that other people can develop front ends for. So, different social media platforms, quote unquote, will just be different websites that are hosting to the same data set, which really becomes pretty powerful, because these different social media platforms, piggybacking on our social media API framework, essentially will be able to add new features and new functionality, but it'll still have the same user base, right? If any of you know, like, 'cause social media is really difficult to get started, because how do you get people starting to communicate on it, right? Doesn't it doesn't really. Nobody's there, nobody's going to talk, and if nobody's talking because nobody's there, then how do you? It's the chicken and the egg problem, right? So this could potentially in the future help, other people launch their different social media platforms and stuff. And ultimately, I think it's important for us to really have that ability, and then having the decentralized communication protocols, that on a singular level will just be quantum resistant messaging systems, so that direct messages. I would like to see it at some point, like as a standalone mobile wallet app, or a standalone mobile app that piggybacks off of your mobile wallet. So essentially, Nexus in itself, your SIG chain can have a byproduct when you create a profile that can also be a public profile. I want to create my business profile, and that you got LinkedIn. I want to create my public, friend profile, and now you got Twitter, right? And so, but then it's sharing the same user base and the same data set, which becomes really powerful, because then more people are going to start, hey, come use my social media platform. But there was issues with Steam and issues with reputation in the Steam system, so we've been working kind of on that game theory a little bit more, but just following the KISS principle on this, at least for the initial launches, keeping it simple, which is really important. I think, like, I saw Facebook, it used to be really desirable compared to MySpace, because it was a simpler, cleaner interface. And then they just started loading up with all these features and crazy stuff. And that's, I think, a problem that a lot of software developers don't really fully grasp, is that, like, you need relevant features. You don't want just features for the sake of having features, for the sake of having something. So on the development side, yeah, that's cool. I'm focusing on a couple new use cases too, some that could be promising. I've been in contact with some people that seems like they could be promising, dealing with, creative stuff and things like that. So that's cool. And then, what's it called? I'm talking to a few people right now as well too, that could potentially help in the promotion of Nexus, but not in a direct promotional sense of like, hey, buy Nexus, which that wouldn't really create desirable circumstances, but people that are going to build utility on it, and people that are going to add that utility, and people that are going to use a technology that's going to really add, I guess, more understanding of its capabilities, and doing real things in the world that really help, and benefit. So that's basically there. Now, I'm also, as you guys know, there was some issues with Trade Ogre a few weeks ago. That's one reason why I'm holding off on the market maker. I want to get 511 out too, because there was an issue that I have fixed, and there is like a 511 that they are running, but I want to get everybody upgraded using the new 511 core before we start reaching out. So that the market maker opportunity is still there. He's just kind of waiting on us. I think we last spoke right before we released the wallet. So I want to just make sure everything's completely bug free, so that when we start reaching out to bigger exchanges, we don't have any issues. It's all completely clear and clean. Right now, I'm watching the network. Network's looking really healthy. We're shooting to have next week, next Friday, might be earlier, but just plan on next Friday being for the 511 release. That'll fix the staking, the transaction issues. Like I said, if you're using the mobile wallet, feel free to go try using it if you had any issues with it. That will be, when it goes to full version, then it'll essentially be able to search for any node on the network that's running at least the 5.1 core. So we won't really have this problem. But there's, if you ever see an issue with it, it's not necessarily an issue on the client side, but it's usually a connection issue on another node, or filtering out bad nodes and understanding, if this node is bad and sending out bad data. And there's just so many little nuances and little things that go into making it work properly, especially when it's an open system. When you have a private closed system, it's really easy to just say, okay, well, I don't want bad actors to be sending bad data into it. But, with an open system like this, you have to be able to filter out all of that information and filter all of that data out. So it's labor of love, though. But I want you guys to all know too, like, I've been doing Nexus for a long time, and I ain't never going to stop until it's done. I'm going to finish the operating system. I'm going to get satellites deployed. Sometimes things may not turn out exactly how we intended or how we would want it. The collapse of Vector really caused a lot of damage to us. But I'm making steady progress. I'm in the lab. I've been making steady progress. I'm working on the hydrogen batteries. I managed to get some thrust on the essentially a prototype that I've been developing. I haven't gotten full liftoff, but I got half of it to lift off. So once I get a really nice demonstration, I want to post you guys a video so you guys can see what I'm working on. And I would also like to see other people helping on the research, right? There at one time was a lot of people doing research on it, and this particular effect, using asymmetrical capacitors with high voltage, it seems to have some. It's generally labeled as electrofluid mechanics, saying that you're just creating an ion wind. If anybody saw like Mythbusters, I think they did it at one point. But the interesting part of the effect is that it only really accounts for 30%. Even if you try to do ion wind or Coriola effects or things like that, you can't account for all the thrust. So this one guy, Hector Serrano, actually, he went into a NASA laboratory and he tested it in a vacuum. It was 10 to the minus 6 torr, like a full vacuum, low Earth orbit vacuum, and he got about 2 millimeters of displacement, which indicates that it's actually creating thrust. And where that thrust is coming from is still to be determined, right? I'm not necessarily trying to go out and figure out, how to do something or describe something, I should say, that doesn't, fully have scientific explanation. But in the general sense, there is a limited understanding of where this thrust is coming from. But the fundamental thing is that it does produce thrust. And I verified it. I just verified it in my lab. It works. It's really fascinating, right? And so ideally, I would like to be able to see shifting away from chemical-based fuel, especially with all the regulation dealing with it. And I mean, a lot of the issues with the rocket is your thrust. All the horsepower and the thrust that you need to have is reliant on, it relies on the fuel source, but then you need the thrust to lift the fuel, right? So it's this chicken and egg issue. And you have this really thin margin that is your payload. And so ideally, I would like to see, this technology, obviously it's going to be open source. Hector Serrano has worked on it as well. He kind of renamed it the Serrano force effect, which was intellectually dishonest because he was studying this particular effect. And, the next step from where I am right now, once I get some better results, right, where I'm actually able to lift the entire object, would be that I would like, need high ceramic capacitors. So basically, I think it was barium titanite is a really nice ceramic material, and then obviously building Tesla coils and stuff to get higher and higher voltage, because based on the results of other people, the thrust increases exponentially with voltage, but you can't maintain voltage if you have dielectric breakdown, right? Which means like your voltage will arc if you have the little lightning bolts, right? That's a discharge, and you want to maintain that voltage potential. But if anyone wants to experiment around with it, it's a really fascinating effect. And the more minds that we have working on it, the better. You can just do it in your garage. It's pretty simple to build. You just need to find a high voltage power supply, but you can build those with the old flyback transformers and old TVs and stuff like that. Those things put out, you need at least 15 to 20,000 volts, but higher voltage would be better, but then you have to take into account dielectric breakdown of air, which is about 1 centimeter per 10,000 volts, I believe, something like that. But anyway, so that's going well. The hydrogen stuff's going well. I got the Arduino stuff. I've not assembled one yet because I've been focusing mainly on the hydrogen, and the hydrogen mainly being to develop a kind of new power source, a new battery. That eventually I think we could shrink down to the size of a AA or a AAA and things like that, so that it's reverse compatible with the existing technologies. 1.5 volts per cell, not a problem. But the idea of that is to potentially get onboard power supply to be able to generate this high voltage, to be able to create kind of our own self propulsion, which eventually I would like to build into drones, things like that. I mean, the possibilities are limitless, honestly, with that. And it's a really fascinating effect, to say the least. But I'm following it with rigorous scientific process. I'm not making assumptions. I'm not presuming that we have everything resolved. But I am experimenting with new technologies that don't necessarily have scientific principles based on our current understanding to explain these effects. Some people talked subquantum kinetics is related to this with electrogravitics and stuff, but I'm still unsure about all of that. So it's inconclusive, but it's interesting research, to say the least, right? So there's that. And then the development updates, I think we're going to go to bi-weekly from here, just so I can have the weekly I was doing up to the run up at 5.1, so you guys could be really, in touch with all of the individual things that are happening. on a weekly basis, but it was taking a lot of time and being really consuming. And I don't know, I'm really momentum oriented, so when I get in a really good flow, it's like I'd be getting into a flow, and it's like AMA, and then I have to reset and start again, get in the flow, and AMA. So we're gonna probably do it bi-weekly, just to keep you guys engaged. And then, I'll obviously be working on some of these marketing opportunities as well, developing relationships with some people that are essentially ideologically aligned with us, but they don't necessarily have the tools to fulfill their goals, right? I'm also working with Christina on her voting application still. They're doing, if anybody saw, what's his bucket? Bobby Kennedy just endorsed her United We Stand, right? So Bobby, I actually met Bobby back in May. He's a really cool guy. It's kind of weird when it's just like, hey, Bobby, I appreciate you. I appreciate your work. And he's like, I appreciate your work. And it's like, well, what, me? Like, oh, shucks, It's funny. So it's cool. So we're working on that with Bobby too. Like he really wants to see some of the reform of voting systems. And I think she's working on a new debate, which Bobby is confirmed for. So we want to have a nice pilot showing kind of blockchain voting. And I've had other people reaching out to me too, saying like we should develop like a parallel voting system, because getting voting in is difficult because we've seen all of the corruption with voter fraud, right? But how do you get legislation passed? I mean, at least in Arizona, like the installed governor that we have, she was installed actually by the Sinaloa cartel. They've actually tracked fraudulent real estate transactions to her since 2007. And she was the Secretary of State. And so she ran the elections. And so naturally, you guys can do the math. They install themselves. So, then she's actually, I think, vetoed every single bill that's come in from Congress, right? Which is another issue, is like the system has become very corrupt all over the planet, and it's really difficult to do something about it when the people that are in power are only protecting their own corruption. So developing kind of a parallel voting system that also creates a data set in order to be able to at least mirror or show, inconsistencies in results, even if we could run something on a local county level in parallel. Like Maricopa County would probably be a good one, because it is such a hot spot for Sinaloa cartel activity, voting, things like that. But I still am pursuing the voting issue, but I had to pivot from Mark Fincham because, we were speaking, but then he was running for Secretary of State, and then I think he kind of just got demoralized. I haven't really seen much from him more recently, but he wanted to do this Arizona Integrity Project, but he didn't really have support from other people in Congress. And then even so, looking how it is now with the corrupt governor we have, I mean, even if you do get legislation to say that, it's just going to get vetoed. So it's kind of this funny chicken and the egg problem. So voting is still a strong pursuit, though, and I think that's something as people more and more across the world reach precipice, they're going to start to recognize this. And then that ties into the social media. And I also wanted to go into group chats too. This is a really cool feature, being able to create a programmable chat room, right? So that's eventually where most of the community activity is going to be moving to. Once we get it done, it's basically kind of think of like a blend of Twitter and Telegram is what the social media site will be like, so that you'll be able to have your public profile and make your tweets and like stuff and retweet, but then you'll also be able to send direct messages or create private channels, private groups, just like you can on Telegram, but that have specific code. Think of it like a smart contract for people. Right? Okay, you need to have a trust key, or you need to have a SIG chain that's been around for 3 months, or you need to have so much Nexus or so much of this token in it, or any of those stipulations you be able to program into it. So that way you can start to tie, at least pseudo-anonymously, to real world identities or real world values, essentially, so that you can't have people making fake accounts. And then it'll create better environments for us to be able to communicate with one another. As far as the internet protocol stuff, the way it's going to start is it's going to be an ad hoc network. I'm working on kind of the mesh network aspect of it right now. So, a basic ground station, and then having, your Arduino routers essentially that are communicating right now. I have, if anybody remembers, I've got 633 megahertz transceivers. So communication protocols with that. I'm experimenting with some kind of other gadgets like smart locks and stuff like that, because as you all know, locks can be completely picked, and they're a big issue. And yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what I've been up to. I mean, kind of the standard stuff, but I kind of jump around between different things. I've been doing a little bit more hardware this month and a little bit more marketing stuff. And some of you guys know what I've been up to, and they could be really huge for us if I'm able to close those. And they're not necessarily going to be like partnerships, because I think those just create a bunch of false hype as well. But more so like building working relationships with people that are, people that are notable in the world, that are doing something in the world because we have similar intent and we're working on the same thing to essentially be able to focus on these things together and reinforce each other. But we have a lot of technology, but we've spent a lot of time developing our tech more than marketing it. So yeah, and then I guess let me see. I could probably go. Sohan, did you? Let me see. I'm going to invite you to speak if you want to speak. I don't know if you're able to do it. If you want to talk a little bit about your social media platform and where you're doing with that, do you want to jump on? Or silence? We can just be silence. But I figured if you want to say kind of some of the ideas, I don't know if it works. Sometimes it doesn't. But I guess while we're waiting on that, we'll wait on that. But yeah, everything's good. I think I'll have a lot more to give you guys in a couple weeks. As far as, like I said, we're going to do a new 501 release by next Friday. Kendall's ready to go. I just have a couple more things that I need to wrap up on my side. And then, I mean, it really depends on how these things unfold. But, the relationship with Christina and Bobby Kennedy is also really, that could be very fruitful too. Bobby Kennedy is actually running for president right now. If anybody knows, I think he's the nephew of John F. Kennedy. And he's been extremely outspoken about a lot of things. So the team's growing, bit by bit. And there's people that are really trying to make these positive movements out in the world in ways that, really shake things up. And I can tell definitely we're still shaking stuff up. I mean, because MasterCard has blocked my transactions for my ISP, right? The MasterCard level, it's really kind of, I appreciate that, that shows that like what we're doing. I mean, if we weren't any threat to anything, then we would just be totally ignored. But I'm actively still getting messed with on a lot of factors and stuff. So, I mean, we're definitely doing the right thing, and we're definitely driving it forward in the right way, and we're definitely not going anywhere. I mean, we got a really awesome community. I really appreciate you guys, and yeah, I'm gonna just keep on building, and then we'll, like I said, next Friday is the maximum release date. That'll be 511, and then to look forward after that, then we got kind of the 5.2, 5.3 stuff. Some people were kind of debating about, pooled staking first, and other people didn't want pooled staking, and other people want remote login, and then they want peer-to-peer messenger and the crypto API. So I'm probably going to just go with the original course, 5.1, 5.2. The next update is essentially going to be the hard fork or not the next one. The next one's going to be 5.1, obviously. And then the 6.0, which will be the hard fork, which will include a lot of the 5.2 features, the remote login, and the peer-to-peer messenger, and the crypto API, and then the upgrade to the difficulty adjustment system. And then after that, we're going to drive into the 6.0 stuff. I've been getting back into kind of some of the 6.0 retroactive stuff too with the constant time load of the database. I also want to turn that into a database service so that you can use it kind of with the JSON RESTful interface. I've had requests of that. I'm also talking to the Komodo guys. I managed to run into them again. I need to follow up with them, so I'm setting up a call with them next week to where we can discuss. So we're getting on the Komodo DEX. And then once we get the 511 out, I'm going to be reaching back out to the market makers so that we can start kicking that out and continue going on. And like I said, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate you all still being here and being involved. And you know me. If anybody was afraid that I'm not going to be, there's no if, there's only when for me. So, if circumstances don't align the way that I anticipated them, I pivot and I find a new way. And you keep doing that, rinse and repeat until you get it. And that's really what makes something succeed or not. I hate to bring Thomas Edison into it because I think he was a scoundrel, but, he didn't find 1,000 ways not to make a light, or 1,000 ways, to fail. He just found 1,000 ways not to make a light bulb. Not to say that we're at 1,000 yet, thank God. But, that philosophy still does really, you need that type of philosophy to really to find that success that you want, because things don't always happen the way that we anticipate them to. And so you can either see those circumstances as opportunities, right? Or you can see them as, okay, I've been bested, I've been defeated, and give up. But, the people that succeed are not the ones that never run into issues and challenges. The people that succeed are the ones that never give up when they run into those issues and challenges. And that's what we are. And we've been going for 9 years. We're going to keep going for another 100, 200,000, whatever years. We're building this thing. And looking at the landscape too, there's a lot of factors that are going to start coming into play that we've prepared for, right? Quantum computers, they're getting pretty close. I've, even talking to people, a lot of people are in denial. They think it's 20 years away, but they don't understand that when it happens, there is no going back. There is no saying, okay, we're going to fix it, because people are going to be losing money and they're going to lose complete confidence in the system because, like for instance, one of my friends who is a security expert, he found a flaw in Ethereum, not necessarily the coilover protocol, but a wallet somebody made where it was only using 64 bits of entropy. So he was able to, with just a CPU overnight, find like a few hundred Ethereum private keys that had Ethereum in them. Or had once had Ethereum in them. So he wanted to test to say, hey, maybe somebody else figured out about this already. And so he deposited a little bit of Ethereum into one of those accounts and boom, oh, gone, right? So somebody was already sweeping those keys. And that's exactly what will happen with quantum computers. Just sweep all your keys. Your keys are not going to be safe. They're going to be gone, and that'll be that, right? And the Bitcoin developers are already starting to talk about it, but the problem, okay, is that Bitcoin is old, and there's about 1 million coins that are still locked up from Satoshi. And so if you can sweep private keys with a quantum computer, then you've got 1 million Bitcoins that could hit the market, and who knows what could happen with that. So it's not a retroactive thing. You can't just like fix it today and be like, okay, all the other problems are gone now. No, you still have all of those problems until somebody transfers. But then if somebody doesn't know that a quantum computer is sweeping Bitcoin keys, or maybe it's, quiet, then, oh, my 50 Bitcoins got disappeared and I made it back up. What gives with that, and then people lose confidence and stuff like that. So there's a lot of factors, I think, coming up too that will be really favorable to us, especially seeing, the growing, I guess, direction of the industry. A lot of it is unsure. Even the regulatory scrutiny. There's a bunch of coins that were just labeled securities. So, I mean, I think we're in a very fortunate position. Just, even being small as we are right now, we're kind of under the radar. We can focus on building, and at the right time, we can hit that promotion button with some of these people that I'm working with, and I think that'll bring us to the forefront. But a lot of these coins I think are going to really disappear because they are securities and they're trying to avoid securities regulation, and they're just going to get sued all the way from the SEC because, a lot of them are run by a big company, a centralized company that raised money in an ICO. You can call it the reason they call it ICO, not IPO, is because IPO implies it's a security, initial public offering. They say initial coin offering. And Ethereum started that. They started the whole thing. I think there's even been certain rumors that Ethereum might be seen, as a quote unquote security, but the SEC did say that it isn't because of the fact that it's decentralized enough. But we don't have to worry about that because we've never done an ICO. It's mined into existence. It's community driven. So let's keep driving it forward, guys. And yeah, don't give up hope. Hope is the belief that things can be better even if we don't know how, and faith is the knowledge that everything is exactly as it's meant to be. So, when you can understand that, you don't look at things as threatening anymore. You look at them as there to teach you and there to help you. We don't know what we don't know. And sometimes, that knowledge, that gnosis comes in through a positive experience, and sometimes it comes through a negative experience, right? And if a forest grew forever, there wouldn't be room for anything else to grow, right? Things have to expand and contract. And, being in a contraction cycle right now, that's opportunity for other people that may not have very much money to be able to get in on the floor. And that also helps maybe the people that have too much money to get out so that they can come back later and buy back when it's at a higher price. So yeah, just don't lose faith, guys, and don't have hope without faith either, right? Because if we have hope without faith, we're going to just constantly be holding on to something better, but we're not going to recognize that it's already perfect as it is right now. These circumstances exist for a reason, right? And they're all here to teach us. And as quickly as we can learn those lessons, and the faster then the new things can come in, right? So just don't lose sight of that, right? And ask yourself too, like why you're involved, why you're doing this, right? Like, we can do it for money. There's probably some sort of monetary benefit to everybody in some way, shape, or form. We need to feed our families, right? But just don't lose sight of why and what we're doing this for, right? And, if you find yourself having trouble, having faith in that, just remember that, it's all exactly as it's meant to be. I know it sometimes doesn't seem that way, but I mean, this last month has been full of so many examples of that for me that really have shown me so much, like of how much the universe really does support us. And even these things that we feel are wrong or painful or difficult, like, are always there to bring us to a better place because we don't know what we don't know. And there's only one way to learn it, right? And that's by having new experiences come in to show us. And when that's not exactly the experience that we wanted, it can feel demoralizing. But just have faith, guys, right? And know why we're here, and let's keep building this together. Because I mean, what I see when I look out into the crypto industry is I just see Wall Street, and a lot of that's tried to drown us. Like we've been attacked in so many ways and shape and form, but look, we're still here. I don't know any other crypto project I've seen be as viciously attacked as we have besides Bitcoin, right? And look, it made Bitcoin resilient, just as making us resilient, and it's making us form together and work together as a community and understand that. So just remember that, guys, that we're a community. We're all in the same boat here, right? We're all focusing to get to that same place. And, the more we work together, the better off we will be. So I'm going to keep doing what I do, right? I'm going to keep kicking it forward, driving it forward in all the ways that I possibly can. And you guys do the same. And so on that note, I think that will be that for this AMA. But just want to share that with you guys, and just know that everything will be all right. I really do see a bright future coming, even though the world looks like it's losing its mind. There's so many wonderful things happening. There's a mass awakening happening in ways that we haven't ever seen before. So let's keep being a part of that. Let's keep driving this forward. All right, guys. I will see you guys in a couple weeks, and I'll drop in and out Telegram every once in a while, and look forward to a new wallet release next week. All right.